Welcome everybody back to a new episode of the European Wrestling Podcast. It's a pleasure to have another great guest today, and it's gonna be Aivil. She's from Italy, but she now lives in Scotland, where she wrestled for the Insane Championship Wrestling. She also champion of the ICW Women's World Champion, and it's a real pleasure because Aivil, she really is one of the best wrestlers we have nowadays around Europe, and let's do it! Are you ready? Let's go! Hi Aivil, how you doing today? It's a pleasure to have you here at the European Wrestling Podcast.
Hi there, hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and thank you for having me.
And once again, exactly as I had a podcast with Nico, which is another Italian wrestler, it's kind of awkward at the beginning talking with you and in English because, of course, we both speak Italian. And but as I said 1,000 times, it's always better to speak in English for this podcast so we can reach as many people as possible in Europe. So before start talking about your career and everything, I will just like to ask you about your childhood, where you grew up, and how was growing up in Italy, and eventually how did you felt in love with professional wrestling?
It was great. To be fair with you, I've always been into sports since I was a very, very little kid. I did swimming for 6 years, and then I played volleyball for another 8 years. When I was around 16 years old, I was used to watch a lot of wrestling on the TV, along with my family. I mean, I forced them during lunch time to watch it with me. So yeah, my passion for wrestling was born when I was a kid. The story is very similar to, I think, the story of many others of us in wrestling. But I didn't know it were possible to actually become a professional wrestler in Italy back then.
What year was that when you start watching wrestling on TV? Do you remember the year?
Oh, geez, no. I just remember I was around 15, 16 years old because there was a channel, which is Sport Italia, that was used to broadcast the WWE during dinner and lunchtime. But I don't remember exactly which year that was. It could have been 2005, maybe.
Yeah, around those years when pro wrestling was pretty big in Italy in 2004, 2005. I think is when it reached its peak in those years. I guess, yeah, 2005 was pretty big.
Because if you remember, after a few years, Chris Benoit died, and they stopped broadcasting everything on the telly. Yeah, so the only means you had to watch wrestling after that tragedy was basically online websites. And at that period, I know it sounds strange to the young people to these days, but I didn't have my own personal computer. So I had to share the house one with my brother, and he's older than I am. So he had priority somehow. So I had a very limited time to use the house personal computer, and I usually use it for school researches or stuff like that, exams. And when the time basically finished for me, my brother just threw me off the living room to use it. So I didn't have much time to actually watch wrestling consistently after it was being removed from the TV, basically. So I had a few years of stop, and then I met my boyfriend, Paxo, also known as Luca De Paxi in the wrestling environment. And he was actually training to become a professional wrestler. So introduced me to Italian Championship Wrestling in Lodi and Milan, which is one of the biggest wrestling schools in Italy to these days. And I started my first wrestling training session in 2014, and then I never stopped, basically.
Yeah, there's something I would like to go back for a second is when you said that professional wrestling has, well, more specifically WWE, has been removed from TV since the Benoit tragedy. I wasn't laughing about the tragedy itself. I was laughing because I was thinking. So we take a break, and that is so ridiculous to use that excuse to take wrestling out of TV, because it seems like they were waiting for something to happen. Just to take it out, and as soon as it happened, they took that tragedy as an excuse, which is not even, well, it's kind of related of pro wrestling, but you can't really blame WWE or wrestling in general for what happened. And so they took that excuse to take it down, and it kind of happened the same thing to me back in the mid 90s. I was watching TV. I was watching WWF on 1994, 1995 on Italia Uno, and at some day it just disappeared. And because it wasn't on TV anymore, like you, I completely lost. I quit watching wrestling. I lost any interesting, and then because of internet, I was able to go back and watch stuff. So let's go focusing on your training, and how was when you first started out? How was wrestling as you expected? Like when you first walk into the gym and start your first day in training back in 2014?
Well, it wasn't like I didn't have any sort of expectations from the training sessions, but of course it was very different from what I was used to, because when you play volleyball, it's of course a team sport. So you know that when you train with your team, everything works together to create some sort of group harmony, because you need to work as a team. Many other people may see wrestling as something more competitive, more individualist, but it is actually not, because I felt very, very welcomed by the whole group of athletes during my training sessions. And I think that in Italy, back in ICW, we created some sort of huge family. Like all the boys and the girls, I consider them as brothers and sisters. And I truly believe that wrestling is somehow a team sport as well, because when you are on stage performing, you need to cooperate with the other person. You need to trust, and the other person needs to trust you as well. You know better than myself. It is not something that you can do just on your own. It's all about sharing the same experience, and it's all about trust and credibility, but also cooperation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. And I guess you have been training a lot with Queen Maya.
Yeah.
And for everybody out there, you need to check it out, because Queen Maya, she's one of the best female worker that we have here in Europe. I really recommend her as a promoter, because she knows what she does, and she knows how to work the crowd and build up the match and everything. She's a great wrestler, and also great trainer, because what she did with you and other girls, she did an amazing job. And so how was training with her?
Oh, I love her. She's like my sister, the sister that I've never had. Honestly, she's like my mentor. She's a veteran. She's amazing, but she's also a very kind person. And I love talking to her. I love learning from her every time we face each other and every time we see each other. She's just like a very great performer.
Great. And so how was the first couple of months of training? Did you ever felt like, hey, maybe maybe I shouldn't do this because it's harder than I thought, or something like that?
No. I'm a very reckless person. So sometimes I tend to do stupid things like jumping from top rope and doing crazy stuff, even when I shouldn't be doing those things. So no, I really enjoy the whole experience. And yeah, it's so much fun, honestly. Even though, of course, a lot of people keep saying that wrestling is fake. It is not. Of course, there's a part of it which is like entertainment. So it's like prepared before the actual performance, but I don't like to say it's fake because we do improvise, of course, sequences and parts of the matches we do, and every bump we take is so damn real. Like I can feel them for a week after the match.
Yeah, every time we hit the ground, I mean, you can fake the competition between the two guys, but you can definitely not fake gravity. I mean, when you hit the ground, you hit the ground.
You can learn how to take a bump, but at the end of the day, you're still taking it. So, and every time a person hits you, it hurts.
Yeah, a lot of guys, or also a couple of the trainer that I had, they used to tell me, you know, where every time you have a wrestling match, it's like having a car accident, pretty much. Mm-hmm. So think about that. Yeah, because it is danger, and you need to know what you do, and you need to train with the right people, which you did, hopefully, training with Queen Maya and his brother. And so, what's your memory? Now we go. Keep going in time. We're now in the year 2015 when you had your first match. So what's the memory of your first match? Like, were you scared, or what? How was your memory? What's your memory?
So my first match was at ᴑᴜɪ̈, which is a huge Comic-Con in Milan, and it was against Queen Maya. And so of course I was nervous. I was freaking nervous. It was my first match. And in a place that wasn't like an unusual venue. It was an unusual place full of people who didn't know anything about wrestling. And they were all watching and expecting things like the things they used to watch on the telly, maybe. So it was like a very interesting experience. I did enjoy every minute of my match. It was a very short one. Maya was fantastic with me. But I have to tell you, right after the match, at the very ending, taking my last bump, I broke my ribs. So it was fantastic. It was like a truly blood baptism into wrestling. You know what I mean? And my mom, there's like a particular story that I like to tell about this first match of my life. My mom didn't know at that point that I was a wrestler. So she knew that I was training to become a professional wrestler, but she didn't know that I was about to debut and to have my first match. So when I went back home after the match, after the day, I couldn't tell her that I had broken my ribs. So I kept all the pain for like a whole month inside of me, screaming internally, because I couldn't say anything to her or my dad. And it was like just terrible. I'm going to tell you. So she found out that I had my debut match only after, I think, 4 months.
Yeah, especially for a girl, I can imagine that it's not easy to talk your parents in what you're doing.
No, it's been a hell of a journey. Now I think they both accept the fact that I'm a professional wrestler and they are very proud of me and all my achievements. But especially my mom, every time she knows that I have a wrestling show, she's like so anxious. She keeps on writing me messages like, please, tell me you're okay. Tell me everything went fine. Yeah, she's always like super nervous.
Well, I think it's pretty much the same for, most of the guys, because it happened to me, it happened to everybody. When your parents, the first couple of matches, they go like, are you really sure about what you're doing? And they seems really worried about it. But I can imagine. I want to ask you, because you said it was ᴑᴜɪ̈ 2015, because I was there as well, but maybe it wasn't the same day, because this is an event that is 3 days long. Because I don't remember, but I'm trying to remember if I've seen your match, but I'm not sure.
It could be. I was wearing, I remember this, I was wearing a Nike tights because I didn't have a proper wrestling gear. And I was also wearing my high Converse, like fake All-Stars made of leather, like black leather. And they were quite high to my calf. And then I had like a modified t-shirt for the top. Like I cut it into some sort of crop top, and I put like a giant print on the front with my face and my name. It was just horrible. But you know, when you start and you don't have wrestling gear, I think many of us just started with random.
Well, yeah, unfortunately we did, and that's something that I I actually don't allow my student to do anymore, because you know that's the first impression you give to the people watching you, and you know it's better to take your time and get your stuff together.
Now times are different. There are a lot of wrestling gear providers, suppliers, sorry, so you can find even cheaper options all around Europe. Yeah. But back in 2014 or 15, we were forced to ask to Mexican or maybe North American providers, and I had a couple of very bad experiences with them, so it wasn't very safe at that point. But nowadays it's kind of different. The situation is different, so thankfully it's easier for the newcomers.
Well, about that, would you like to talk about, because we may forget later, would you like to talk about your creation that you do when it comes about creating gimmicks? I mean, the costumes.
You mean the custom gears?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If you want to. It's basically my profession. So we could say that I have two jobs. So my full-time job is to create wrestling gears. And my second job is a part-time job, and it's the one of professional wrestling, because I usually do that during the weekends. So as I was saying, I had two very bad experiences buying custom gears abroad. The first time I ordered my gears from an American provider, and he shipped my gear after a year of waiting. And it was all wrong. I spent so much money and I've never ever used it, not even once. So the top was completely different from my original sketch, and the measurements were all wrong. The second time, Luca, my partner, same name, yeah. So he thought about giving me a present for my birthday, and he ordered a new gear from Mexico. But the guy from Mexico, after receiving half of the money, he just disappeared, and he changed. He changed his identity like a couple of times.
Wow.
So we were looking for him online, and he kept on changing the name. And so basically, the end of the story is we have never get the chance to receive the gear, and of course our money back. So my grandma was a very, very good seamstress before getting sick. So I had a sewing machine home. And I decided after these bad experiences, why the hell I should order something from somebody else? Why don't I start working on the sewing machine and learning how to do this stuff? So I took a few lessons, Luca did the same. And when we moved to Scotland in 2016, we decided to open a business. And now we are professional gear makers.
So what's the name of your business? Do you have a Facebook page, website? Or you can how can people, or actually how can wrestlers can find you?
You can find us at JJ Wrestling Creations, and we are active on Facebook, Twitter, and even Instagram. Or you can contact us by email at info@jjcreations@gmail.com.
Okay, that's great for you. That you know, actually, did you know that Cesaro used to create his own stuff as well?
No, I didn't know.
I don't remember if he said that in an interview or somebody told me, but yeah, I never had the chance to ask him if he was actually thinking to have a side business on that, or if it was just for himself.
Oh, I think he's rich enough. He's enough popular. He doesn't need
It doesn't need that anymore. But yeah, the story, it was interesting. That's the point. The story was interesting because, as far as I remember, it was that he was keep doing his own stuff even if he was already in Ring of Honor or WWE. That's why I remember the story, because if he's an indie guy that does it, that's that's okay, nothing special. But if it's somebody that has already, the money to buy any kind of gears in the world, and it still make those on his own, that's very interesting.
Well, I think that in his position, I would do the same, because to me, it's not just a job. It's like a real passion. It's a love. So I really love to create these amazing gears from nothing. I like to create the concept, the sketch of it, to design everything in my mind. So I would keep on doing that for me as well, because I just really love it. I can't stop it. Sometimes I work even 12 hours per day. And if I'm not wrestling during the weekends for some reason, I keep on working because I just love what I do. And I think this is special because not many people in the world can say the same thing about their job.
So that's great. About Scotland, I want to ask you about Scotland because 2016, as you said, you both guys decided to move to Scotland, and it's a huge step because it's if you go somewhere just for training or study like I did, I spent some time in Canada and United States, but going there like to live there, like completely moving your life and everything in another country is another story. So can you tell me a little bit about that process? Like how did you finally get this decision and everything that comes with?
So basically, at the end of 2015, both Luca and I understood that if we wanted to become professional wrestlers, we had to move outside Italy. Not because wrestling in Italy is like something bad, but if you want to take the step farther, you just need to go overseas, I think. So the decision was in between London and Glasgow, because in London we had Progress Wrestling, and in Glasgow, Scotland, we had Insane Championship Wrestling. At the end of the day, we decided to move to Glasgow, Scotland, because it was cheaper and the town is smaller if compared to London. And I don't like to live in huge metropolis. I prefer smaller places because I come from a small town. So basically, that's it. That's why we decided to move to Scotland. And weather apart, which is not very great, everything is fine here.
So how was the change of your life? Like, because I guess the first couple of months it wasn't that easy to get used to Scotland.
No, not even the first year, to be fair. Like, I think that the worst part was the language, because they speak Glaswegian, which is a variant of English, like some sort of, it's not even a dialect, but or a slang. It's just like a different way to pronounce things and to speak. So it was quite hard to understand them more than to interact with them, especially for Luca. It was easier for me because in university I studied foreign languages and literatures, so I was more used to, talking to people in another language and understand them. But with time we managed to do that as well. Now it's not a problem anymore.
Well, and more north you go, worse it becomes, because I've been on vacation in the very north of Scotland. And I remember we had some issue at the airport in Inverness, and so I went to the customer service and say, hey, we have a problem with our luggage, and they were talking so like I couldn't understand like nothing. I was like, are you talking English or something? Because I can't understand, and it was so different. So then when we were traveling around, even inside that area, they have different accent.
Oh yeah.
And but it's really kind of strange English that they speak over there, and it's also interesting that we both speak Italian, but because I've been in North America and because you have been in Scotland, we have a different accent.
Yeah, totally. See, because I've been home for Christmas, I haven't been talking to anyone from Scotland in 2 weeks, basically. But when I keep on talking for a long period of time with people here, I start talking like them. So I gain their accent, and it's so terrible because, in university and in school, you're used to learn to speak British English. So you think that's the cleanest way to speak this language. And when you realize you're not talking like them anymore because you're gaining another kind of dialect, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm talking Glaswegian, but it's not at the same time,
Well, to me, wrestling helped out a lot learning English, because when you're taking bumps, when you're doing wrestling and you don't understand, is a problem. Because you're going to get killed somehow. You're going to kill yourself if you don't understand what they're telling you. So beside the English school, wrestling school helped me out a lot in the process of understanding and speaking English. So I still have problem in writing, which is not always like it should be. But I spend so much time in North America, then I think that I can pretty much understand and speak with everybody. And I don't know if that happened to you as well, but sometimes there's maybe what somebody asked me about a movie, and I don't remember if I've seen that movie in Italian or if I see it in English. So that means that you pretty much know both language pretty well. If you don't even remember, what language did you see the movie?
Well, sometimes I dream in English. I don't even dream in Italian anymore. And when I go to Italy and I have to prepare matches with the girls over there or the boys, I start talking like naturally. I would prefer to prepare everything in English than in Italian, because I'm so used to cool moves and spots with the English version of the name of them, that I feel strange to talk in Italian. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you have to translate it back because you've learned stuff in English.
It's even more difficult now because I feel like it's more natural to me to speak in English when I'm preparing stuff. And of course, people in Italy don't understand because maybe they haven't been outside Italy, so they can't possibly know how they pronounce things. But yeah. It's like a double work because you need to translate everything in your mind back into your language. Then,
well, actually, that was I remember when I was writing the small book that I wrote, "Take the First Step in the Right Direction," which is a small book about the mistakes that you should not do when you step into pro wrestling. The easy part was that so much of the thing that I've learned them in English, so it was easy to explain those in English than actually translating in my mind and in Italian. That was the easy part. The hard part, it's still writing a book in another language. It's crazy. It's already crazy writing in your own language, but you're trying to write a book in somebody else's language. That was pretty tough. So I don't think I will never write a book anymore because it was no, that was a pretty bad experience. I mean, at the end I was happy that I made this book, that I wrote this book, but the process was very long and very exhausting, and I don't know if I'm gonna write another one. Before we keep going, I would like to take a short break to thank theshieldofwrestling.com for providing this new episode of the European Wrestling Podcast. Theshieldofwrestling.com is an Italian website obviously about professional wrestling, and here's some information about the Shield of Wrestling.
Fan del wrestling, ma soprattutto di The Shield of Wrestling. Se volete rimanere sempre aggiornati in tempo reale sugli ultimi avvenimenti del vostro sport spettacolo preferito, allora seguite www.theshieldofwrestling.com. Potete trovarci anche su Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram e perfino Discord. Inoltre, durante la settimana potete ascoltare i nostri podcast su Twitch, YouTube, Spreaker e Spotify. Il lunedì alle 19, a cadenza bisettimanale, troverete Over the Top Rope, il programma di riferimento del wrestling italiano. Mentre venerdì alle 18 vi terremo compagnia con What's Next, il programma dedicato agli avvenimenti del main roster WWE. Tutto questo per offrirvi il miglior servizio possibile, perché non dimenticate mai che we are the Shield of Wrestling! Ah, mi raccomando, non fatevi mancare la nostra app sui vostri dispositivi mobili, così che potrete seguire The Shield of Wrestling in ogni momento.
European Wrestling Podcast.
So we were talking about Scotland, and as many of you know, in Scotland there's the Insane Championship Wrestling, which is one of the best promotion not only in the UK but in Europe. If not in the world, because I mean the job they do is amazing, and they also have a very strong connection with WWE. I'm sure most of you saw the clip when Triple H show up at the ICW show and make a huge surprise. So I was a process in getting into ICW for you back in those years, which is a couple of years ago, or maybe more.
So I debuted in ICW in 2017, which is basically a year after I moved to Scotland. When I moved to Scotland, I joined a new school of wrestling. It's called the Glasgow Pro Wrestling Asylum, which is basically the main school that provides new athletes for the ICW. So after a year, I've been asked to join one of the main stable in the promotion, which was the Legion. That time, the leader of Legion was Mikey Whiplash, one of the most brilliant veterans in the UK and in the world. So basically, I joined the Legion as Jokey, which is my main character, the one I always used since the beginning. But through that year, I've been told to create a new character to fit in better into the stable. So that's how Aivil was born. Basically, during a show, I did an in-ring promo. It was more like a ritual. Yeah, it's kind of.
Yeah, weird. I remember that. It's I guess the video is still around on YouTube, yeah, right?
It was like a huge success on the media because Jokey had been possessed by this demon priestess, Aivil. And since that day in ICW, I've always been her, basically. So now I have this multiple personality disorder, and I don't know which one of the two of them is like leading the right. But yeah, so I debuted in 2017, it was and I had my first match. Oh God, I don't remember which month it was, but it was possibly 2018 in October, I think, because the first year that I worked for them, I was working more as a manager inside the stable of the Legion. And a year after, they decided to give me the chance to prove myself also as a wrestler, as an athlete. And my first match was an 8-man tag team match, just a huge mess. In my very first tour with ICW, we were down in the south of England, and it was so much fun. It was one of the most memorable experiences in my whole life, because I debuted in the main event of the night, which was like a huge thing. They've never allowed anyone of the roster. No, I'm not talking about the imports. I'm talking about the constant mix of the rosters. So I was the very first one debuting in the main event of a night show. So that was pretty huge.
Who did you work?
So I was in team with Mikey Whiplash, and the other teams were Jimmy Havoc and Casey. Then we had Chris Renfrew and Viper, and Kaylee Ray, and I think it was Stevie Boy. Yeah, I think so.
Does the video still around, or because I know ICW has many stuff on demand. Is that video available on YouTube if somebody wants to check it out?
I think you could find maybe a highlight video on the ICW channel on YouTube, But if you want to see the whole match, you need to go on the on-demand channel.
Yeah, obviously. Because ICW is making a lot of business with professional wrestling up in UK, which is a country where it works way much better than the rest of the Europe, because UK is UK and wrestling is part of the culture. It's definitely not like in Italy where you grew up, where people still don't get it, and they still don't know what wrestling is. I mean, yeah, when it was big on TV, they kind of knew, but never was part of a culture.
No. I've recently done an interview for I think it was like an interviewer from America, and I told him the very same thing, because he was asking me about the difference in between the wrestling scene in Italy and Germany and the one in the UK. So I think that the problem in Italy is that wrestling is seen more as a hobby than as a proper discipline. So we don't get the credibility that other kind of athletes have. And that's, like you said, that's a problem of culture, because it's not like something very popular. So people don't know anything about wrestling. They just suppose things. And when you don't have the knowledge, you fall into misjudgments.
Yeah, but that's certainly true. But there's another thing that I remember back in the days when I first started out wrestling in was 2007 or something like that. I remember that pretty much everywhere you were going in Italy, everybody were saying the same thing. Well, people are stupid. They don't understand wrestling. The reason they don't cheer is because they don't understand wrestling, and blah, blah, blah. But that wasn't the case, because, it's your job as a wrestler to let them care about what you're doing. So if the crowd doesn't react, you're making something wrong. So it's not that people are stupid. You can sell wrestling everywhere. If you do it right, you can go in the middle of, like, I had a show in Romania a couple of months ago, and trust me, nobody cares about wrestling there. It's really the last thing they want to see, and the last thing they will care about it. But at least in my match, I was working the crowd a lot until, they were reacting and they were into what we were doing. And at the end, in the main event where all the guys were involved, they pop. They react, and even if they had no idea what the fuck they were watching, basically, they had no idea what's going on, but at least they react. And I think it's important to know that it's your job as a wrestler to make them care.
I agree with that. I think it's just a matter of providing the right platforms to perform wrestling for bigger crowds, because knowledge comes with experience. So if people don't experience what wrestling is, they cannot understand what it truly is, and they cannot appreciate it. So it is our job as wrestlers to make them involved into what we do. But at the same time, I think we need to advertise maybe even more what wrestling is, and to promote even better our shows and our platforms, because a lot of people just don't know that there are wrestling shows throughout the years in many areas of Italy, for instance. They just don't know, because there's not enough advertisement, I think.
Yeah, that's a huge problem. And and another thing to close this chapter is that back in the days, and some people still do it these days, I remember that we were talking, we had this arrogant way to think that we were doing the greatest wrestling match in the world, that we were doing everything right. And like I said, we thought that the people were stupid because they were just clapping their hands only when you were doing some move, like if they were watching a circus. But then now thinking back, of course they were clapping the hands just for the flips, because we were doing high spot matches with just flip and no psychology and no work in the crowd and zero psychology in there, and that's why those matches did not work right. So, but I guess when you're young and when you don't have anybody tell you, you just assume that you know everything, and you assume that if something goes wrong, it's somebody else's fault.
I think it's more to do with the most recent type of wrestling, because today indie wrestling is basically a lot of time made of high jumping moves and flips and crazy sequences with no psychology. Instead, I appreciate more like old school's kind of shows and matches, because you can actually follow, as you were saying, an actual storyline throughout the whole match, and you can enjoy every single moment of it till the very end. So I've been told that the most important part of the match is the ending. So the whole match needs to give a sense, a meaning to the ending you decide to use. You know what I mean? So if you keep on doing nonsense stuff till the very end, you are ruining your own match.
Yeah, it's like telling a joke. If you don't build it up right, then the punchline doesn't work. I mean, nobody's gonna laugh if you don't build it up in the right way.
Yeah, we are characters at the end of the day, so we need to tell a story. We are not like MMA fighters. We don't just hit each other with no reasons just because our goal is to put KO the other person. That's not our goal. We need to entertain people. And in order to do that, as you do in a theater or on a movie, you need to tell a story.
Yeah, but the basic story is always that you want to win. And I think that a lot of guys actually forget that. We're not out there just to present a character that is entertained. We should go out there and present a character that is actually trying to win. And that's something that a lot of guys nowadays, they don't do. They just go out there, have their flips, and as a fan, when I'm watching, I want to see two guys. Okay, there's some entertaining, okay, but at the end of the day, what you want to do in your character is to win. The goal of the match is to win, and many times you don't see that. You see matches going on for 20 minutes without even a pin. So whatever.
It's a choice. I mean, it's a different kind of style. I'm not able to do a 450 from top rope. I do other stuff. I do other things, but at the end of the day, people who are watching, they won't remember your match. Maybe they will remember your beautiful moonsault from top rope or the 450, yeah. But at the end of the day, they will remember with more pleasure a match with a psychology, with a storytelling, with less spectacular moves maybe than your match. They will just remember a few bits of your match, but not the whole story, not the whole, storytelling.
Right. So about something else about Scotland. I mean, since you have been in Scotland, you have been selected to join the WWE tryout, which is certainly a great experience, regardless how it ended up. And do you want to tell me a little bit about how was the process to get in touch with WWE, and how was the tryout, your feeling and your expectation, everything about the WWE tryout that you had a couple of years ago?
Oh, yeah. Well, the tryouts, I didn't have them a couple of years ago. To be fair, I did have them at the beginning of summer 2019. And that was the first all-female tryouts in UK. It was for NXT UK.
Okay.
So I received, basically one day I received an email from their staff asking me to join the tryouts. So at the beginning, I thought, this must be a joke. You know what I mean? Like, real. So I was working and I just received the email. I just said, WWE tryouts, this is spam for sure. This is like a phishing mail.
Yeah.
Luca was next to me because we were working together. And I just I cried like a baby. I couldn't believe what I was watching on the screen. The whole experience lasted 3 days. So we were asked to join the WWE staff in London, in a hotel in London. And every day we went to the performance center over there, the one that NXT UK athletes use. And we were put on different kind of challenges and trials and sequences. So they tested us onto many levels, not just the physical one, but also, how can I explain this to you? So there was a promo session because they were interested, of course, in knowing our characters and the way we were able to present them to the crowd. And then we did also a few exercises to understand how vocal we could be and how fluent our English, our language was. I was the only Italian over there. It was kind of hard because I was also the only one coming from Glasgow, from Scotland. All of the other girls were from Ireland or from the south of England. It's a very tough journey. I won't lie to you. It's difficult. It's very challenging, but it is also, of course, satisfying. I had the chance to meet William Regal, and I learned so much. I met wonderful girls that I am friends with them now. So all in all, even if it's like a very, very tiring and exhausting experience, it's a real reward. It's something huge for my career, especially considering my age. I wasn't expecting it at all. And it came in a moment of my life where I was feeling very, very down and depressed, even wrestling-wise. And not because I didn't have bookings or things were going in a bad way, the total opposite. But I was in a place with my mind that didn't satisfy me. And because of other reasons, like personal reasons, I was putting myself down. So the tryouts helped me to regain confidence, regain energy and passion and determination, and led me basically to fully enjoy the rest of the year, be it whatever it is. I didn't care about the final result because the whole experience taught me so much and was so satisfying that I didn't care the way it ended. Of course, I haven't been signed with WWE, not yet, at least.
Not yet.
But, you know, I'm happy with what happened, of course.
Did you had, beside the exercise and promo, did they ask you to have a match?
Oh, yeah.
Or matches?
The very last day, we've been put into pairs, into couples, and we've been asked to do a 5-minute match. And after the matches, they just gave us great feedbacks about everything, and basically that's it. After the matches and after the feedbacks, we just basically finished the tryouts. I was the only one who had to go back the very same night because I was catching the flight maybe 3 hours after the tryouts ended. So I had to literally jump on a cab to get to the airport because it was quite far away from the PC to get my plane back. But I did have time to listen to all the feedbacks and to greet with everyone. So
awesome. So that was a great experience.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. And I think Mila Smidt was there as well.
Oh, nope. She was
in another one.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen her posting a couple of pictures of a WWE tryout, but maybe it was the one they had in Germany. I don't know. Right. I was thinking about her because, of course, in last year, November 2019, you finally came here in Lugano at my show. I'm saying finally because you were scheduled to another show early and you got injured. Yeah. And so you couldn't make it the first time, but hopefully through a couple you want to tell the story about the fly?
Oh geez. Yeah, so I was supposed to catch a flight the night before the show, but of course we got stuck in the traffic because of a car accident. So we ran into the airport and we missed the flight for 5-10 minutes. So we had to take another one. And we were lucky because there was another flight on the same night, like 2 hours later, with another company though. So because the first flight was with Ryanair, the second one was with EasyJet. So with the EasyJet flights, we didn't have the second hand luggage. So we need to pay an extra to get one hand luggage. And I managed somehow to put everything else inside the other luggages that were already like full. Yeah. So we got to Italy safe and sound, and then the next day we managed to get to Switzerland. Well, I managed because I was with Luca and another guy, but they were supposed to go somewhere else for another show. I was
they were booked somewhere else. Yeah. But it was a pleasure to have you at my show, Pro Wrestling Live Lugano 9. And for everybody who wants to watch the match, is Aivil versus Mila Smidt for the ICW World Women's Championship match, and is available on the Pro Wrestling Live Events YouTube channel. And let's talk about that title that you got, the belt that you got from ICW, which is an unbelievable achievement. Because as we said, ICW is pretty big and UK, and they don't choose their champion just like that. I mean, they give the belt to the right guy or the right girl in your case. So how was the process behind it? Like, were you surprised, or were you like more, like, hey, I'm here, I'm doing everything right, and I'm thinking I'm I understand that I'm the right person right now to carry the belt?
I think it was like a mix in between the two things you said, because when I moved here to Scotland, my main goal was to debut for ICW and one day to win the belt. So I've worked my ass off to get there and to do everything in the right way. And I had to wait, 3 years before getting there. But when I set a goal in my life, I'll do anything that I have to get there. I'm not like a quitter. I'm not somebody that just says, okay, I'm done. I'm not getting there. So I think it was like a huge reward for all the passion and the hard work, the determination that I've put into this business, into this job. It was amazing, because honestly, in all my life, I've never seen myself as like a champion or a winner. I think it's a matter of self-confidence. We were talking about this before. It's something personal, but to get there and to realize that I was actually the ICW champion and to represent the women's category over there, it was just unbelievable. But it validated myself as an athlete and not just as a person, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it was great. It is great.
It is great. And to me, it was great as well, because we had a partnership with the ICW, because they let you defend the title in Switzerland, because it was the first defense right after you just got the belt, and also against Mila Smidt, which, like I said, she's another girl that she has a how can I say that? Like, I think she's gonna have a long career, because
she's got a great future.
Yeah, exactly. Because I like her style. I like the way she wrestles, especially because of her background, which is freestyle wrestling. I think I like this mix, the way and the way you work together. And in fact, I was right, because the match was good, and I think all the crowd and everybody were happy. So to finish up the podcast, I usually ask to tell some crazy story, and so if you have any story that just pop up in your mind, you can just go ahead and tell your crazy story of the day.
Right, I'm telling you this one. Remember I was talking about my first match in ICW when we were on tour in the south of England. So during that match, after a minute from the start, I actually broke my nose. I know I keep saying that I broke this, I broke that.
You broke everything.
I know, but I'm a reckless kind of person. So sometimes I just put myself into dangerous situations.
Well, but you always recover very well. And let me say that
I bend, but I don't break.
Huh?
I bend, but I don't break.
Yeah, and you always had amazing recovery, and you also are one of the best girl in Europe when it comes about being in shape, because there's a lot of good worker out there, but definitely Aivil is in good shape, guys. So if you want to see somebody in shape, go and check out Aivil. So back to your story.
Yeah. So basically, I broke the nose. So I went to the hospital the same night, but for some reason, maybe because I wasn't in Scotland and I was in England, they told me they couldn't find my name into their register. So if I wanted to have a check on my nose just to know if it was broken or not, but I already knew it was broken. It was clearly broken. They told me you need to pay £100 as a fee, and I didn't have all those monies with me that night. So because the nose wasn't like very, very painful, I just told them, right, I'm going to the hospital tomorrow in Glasgow, so it's easier for me. I don't have to pay anything. Goodbye. And the very same night, back in the hotel, a friend of mine, one of the workers, gave me some painkillers because I didn't have any in my luggage. So she told me, you're fine. If you take even 2 of these pills, you're going to be great, because I usually take 2 in a row and I'm always fine. Now, I'm not very used to take pills or painkillers. I prefer to actually feel the pain, because that's when I know if I'm progressing very well, if my health is coming back. I know I'm weird, but I prefer.
That makes sense.
It makes sense. So that night I took 1 pill and I slept very, very well. So the day after, I had a long trip in the car to go back to Scotland. It was like an 8-hour travel. So after lunch, after an hour of travel, I took another pill because my head was starting to be painful, and the nose as well. But after a few minutes in the car, I feel like I just felt into like a drug trip. So I was alternating moments of when my heart was beating so fast, I thought I could have a heart attack. And other moments when I felt like I was completely paralyzed from head to toe.
Holy shit.
No, I swear, I was feeling like horrible. And that was the very first time I was actually spending a lot of time with Mikey Whiplash. He was in the same car. And as I said, we were working in the same stable. So we had our very first match together the night before. And it was quite embarrassing because after a while, apart from how I was feeling, I started to get sick. So I started to throw up. And luckily for me, I had a few plastic bags with me because I had bought to the previous car station some bananas or anything, because I thought maybe if I eat something, I feel better. That was a huge mistake, of course.
You just threw it out just 2 seconds after you.
I have an hour of trip basically throwing up and feeling absolutely shite. And that was so embarrassing. But they told me, oh, no, you were so funny. We love you for that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Thank you, at least. But yeah, it was horrible. And the day after, when I went to the hospital and I told them, I think I have a trauma in my head because I felt this way during my trip back. They told me, what kind of painkillers did you take? And I told them it was tramadol. The tramadol? Are you crazy? Are you insane? Who gave to you that medicine? And I was like, nobody, just a friend of mine. Why? Because it's like, apparently it's like a very, very how can I explain it to you? It's like morphine or heroin. So
very, very strong stuff that you should not be allowed to have without a prescription, pretty much.
Yeah, you need prescription to get there, because if you take tramadol when you maybe undergo into a very special kind of surgery or very painful accident. And I just took 2 in less than 24 hours because I thought they were like just normal painkillers, and I'm not even used to take pills. So yeah, now I know that I was basically drugged, and I was having my very first trip. But yeah,
you had a double trip actually.
Yeah, exactly. But the most important fact is that when I came back home that same night and I was feeling horrible, I didn't find my boyfriend home alone working as he promised me he would have done. He was home with a friend playing PlayStation. And I just went mad. I was like, how dare you? Because I was so nervous and so tired and everything. But yeah, that was an unbelievable trip. I can say this.
And how was the process of fixing your nose?
Oh, that's another story because basically when I went to the hospital, they told me, oh yeah, it's broken. We can, fix an appointment to the surgery. Yeah, okay. So a week passed since that day and nobody called me back. So I called the hospital back and said, hey, it's been 10 days now that my nose is broken and I don't want it to fix it the wrong way because in that case you will have to re-break it and put it in position.
Yeah, exactly. It
would be horrible. And they basically told me, yeah, we will contact you back in a few hours. Of course, they didn't do that. And other 2 days passed. So I just decided to take the first flight home. I went back to Italy. I went to the hospital the very same night. It was like midnight. And I told them, right, this has happened. I need surgery like right now because 12 days has passed and I'm shocked that nobody took care of me. So it was Halloween. So I had to wait another day because no doctor wanted to work on Halloween, or on the 1st of November, actually, the day after.
Yeah, because it's a holiday.
Yeah. So yeah, I did surgery in Italy. It was fucking painful. Sorry, I couldn't say the bad word. Beep, painful, but they fixed it somehow.
Man, that was terrible. Well, in Switzerland we pay a lot of money for the health insurance, but at least when you need it, it works. Because when I broke my hand, in less than 24 hours after I broke my hand, I was already in a surgery room, and they fixed it really quickly. And it took me just 6 weeks to get it fixed and being able to use the hand again. And after 3 months, I was clean to wrestle again.
That's a dream come true. Never here, like never.
Yeah, but we pay a lot, so I don't, they fix they fix my hand, but you're still broke in a sense that you're broken. The money.
Don't have any.
It's unbelievable. Well, about nose, there's something that happened back in several years ago in Switzerland, and I never told this story pretty much anybody because I promised the girl involved that I won't say anything until the time is right. But now she's a top star, so I don't think it's gonna make any difference. So back in the days, the WWE superstar Paige, she came in Switzerland for a show, and she was trying a couple of stuff in the ring with the girl that she had to work with, and something went wrong, and she got hit very bad on her nose. She left the ring, came back in backstage, and she was freaking out. She was really freaking out because she thought, she was already signed with WWE. She was about to go to Florida, and she was like, if it's broke, I may be fucked up because maybe WWE they don't want me anymore because I broke my nose, or maybe I have to be moved, go back in 6 months, but maybe everything changed in 6 months. So she was really freaking out, and she was scared. She didn't know what to do about the nose, and I remember telling her, you need to go to the hospital and ask what's going on, because if it's not broke, fine, but if it's broke and you don't fix it, then you're gonna be in deep shit, because as you said before, when you don't fix the nose right there and in the beginning, then you may have more problem trying to fix it later. So we kind of tell her, go to the hospital. And I think the promoter, which is Sigi, I think I had a talk with him. I said, just if she doesn't have the money, just pay for her, but please don't let her be in, almost crying and everything. So just bring her to the hospital and then go check whatever is going on with this nose. And I'm glad that we kind of forced her to go to the hospital.
That was nice of you, yeah.
And check everything. So at the end, I really don't know how the story ended, because we never had a chance to meet again. And so if I will have her meet Paige again, that's the first thing I'm gonna ask her, the behind the scene of that story, because I only knew, until the show was over. I mean, she went to the hospital, and then we were doing our stuff. We didn't even talk about that anymore. But that will be an interesting question for her. But I remember that she was super freaking out about. But it makes sense, because I mean, WWE, if you show up, hey, hi everybody, and by the way, I just broke my nose, it's not the best thing. But whatever, it will be interesting to know the behind the scenes story, the full behind the scenes story of that. So thank you very much for this interview, Aivil. It was a pleasure to have you here. And before I let you go, I would like to ask you to let the people know where they can find your Facebook page, Instagram, website, whatever. So go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you.
Oh, yes. So you can all find me on Twitter at twisted_doll_AJ, or on Instagram at twisted_priestess, or on Facebook as Jokey and Aivil.
Great. So, and again, if you want to have a second podcast, maybe in 6 months or in a year, to see how did you progress in your journey in professional wrestling, will be also a pleasure. And again, thank you very much. I wish the best for the future in Scotland.
Thank you.
Take care. Say hi to Luca, and bye. Thank you very much.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
European Wrestling Podcast.
I'm Luca Rusconi Belthazar, and you can follow me on Twitter at @Luca_Rusconi. You can also follow me on Facebook on my profile, Luca Rusconi Belthazar, or my page, which is Belthazar Pro Wrestling. I'm also on Instagram, of course, and as always, Luca Rusconi Belthazar. All the episodes are gonna be online on YouTube, and also available on my website, which is belthazar.com. And of course, if you are gonna share this episode, please use the hashtag European Wrestling Podcast. As well, if you have any question, again, hashtag European Wrestling Podcast. Thanks everybody again. I'll see you next week.